Hello, everyone. Welcome to the next episode of Just Because We Are Curious. To begin with, let me thank you for the great feedback that you have given to the JBC series. We have heard you very intently and intend to incorporate all the feedback that you have given. Thank you once again for being part of this very important series that Right Management has launched. Today's Just Because We Are Curious series is a bit different from what we have done up till now. And so let me give you some background why I say this. I was recently invited onto a radio program where we're discussing generally the state of education in India. And on the sidelines of that conversation, I got to interact with the RJ of that program. And as I was speaking to her, I discovered the interesting personality that she is. Annie D has done various interesting things in her career. The way she has taken strategic calls to shape up a career from doing a proper management, acquiring a proper management degree, getting onto a regular corporate job in the retail sector, and now she's a very successful RJ in one of the most heard English channels in India. I was very fascinated by her journey, the way she has taken calls about her entire career and gone about executing them in a very strategic manner. We decided to invite her to the JBC platform, and I personally thought rather than me having a conversation with her, we should get some of our young consultants to speak to her and get into her thought process, into her mind in terms of why she took certain career decisions at certain stages in her life. And there would be very interesting insights, I'm sure, for all of us from the conversation. This entire conversation is going to come to you in two parts. So let's get into the part one of the conversation where you'll hear her sharing her early life experiences with four of our very young dynamic consultants. Over to the conversation. Thank you.
First moment, let's rebel, but we didn't do such things. But I found a way to merge both cultures. So everyone was happy, and I was happy. We are humans, and I think a skill of humans is to adapt. Hence, we survive. I think this is the was, and I was to survive.
Great, absolutely. That sounds wonderful. So, if you can tell us a bit about how your education journey has been.
Okay, so fair enough. So I did my A levels in England. I did bio, I did chemistry, I did economics, and then I went to a London university, famous in England actually, and I did human biology. And then I travelled to Scotland and I did my masters, where I did my MBA and specialised in retail management.
Okay.
Yes.
That's eclectic. Exactly. So, how do you oscillate between
But tell me,
biology and management?
shall I tell you how I oscillate? It's how you live every day. When you get up in the morning, you come to work. Doesn't mean you're not healthy. Doesn't mean you don't feed yourself. So how is it any different to the way that you're living life? You are using so many subjects you don't even realize. Finance, economics, bio, chemistry, you're doing everything. Look at the fad diets out there. Tell me you're not using science. So I wouldn't say the two extremes. I think we are multifaceted. We'd be so boring if we were just one subject, to be honest. And I had interests in both. Just because I had an interest in one didn't mean that I didn't have an interest in anything else. And it has been useful because, as I said, I use it in my everyday life. So yes, I did an MBA, and I didn't start at management level. I actually started on the shop floor.
Okay.
Because as far as I'm concerned, if I'm going to manage this industry one day, I need to know what my product is about. So that was the kind of person that I was. So I started on the shop floor, and I progressed to middle management. Okay, so I was doing that, progressing naturally for about 5 years. And of course, society accepted and expected that I would be at home, and it was natural. So then I stopped working, and then I stayed at home and managed my house for over a decade.
So was this decision very hard for you, like you were working in a corporate setup and then taking the decision and staying at home?
Right. So as I've said, so no decision was that hard because it was expected. Right. So there was nothing to rebel against because I didn't know any better. And is it wrong? Was it right? We don't know. It just was at the time. So I ran my own like clockwork. And my MBA, and you ask, how does it work? Well, it's my MBA that dictated how I run my house. It was literally like a well-oiled machine. So just like you would in the corporate world, I set objectives. I prioritized my objectives. I achieved objectives, according to a certain time scale, so time management, to achieve my ultimate goal. And when people were struggling to maybe achieve 5 things in a day, I was able to achieve 10. So the MBA teaches you to answer the right questions, and it teaches you to look at things very differently. So if you think you're not using it because you're at home, absolutely mistaken. You use everything that you learn. No education is an absolute waste. And let me tell you, I wasn't doing anything different to say office manager. No homemaker is. In fact, he or she is probably better because you're working with your own budget. You make a mistake, it affects you directly. You make a mistake at work, doesn't really matter, does it? So this is it. And when some people think, I have no value being at home, it frustrates me when I see, mostly women, very few men that I've seen at home, but it applies to both. You have so much to give. You have so much to give. You just have to ask yourself, what is it? For goodness sake, some of the answers that I hear, I'm only just a cook. Well, I've seen all these, these TV programs with brilliant, famous cooks, and you're saying just a cook. Well, I only clean. Well, somebody's just made money by making a book on how to clean properly and efficiently. You're trying to say you have nothing to contribute. You are joking. You are absolutely joking. Reason why I say this, because I have been there. I was one of those women that thought, I have nothing to give. So I can actually speak from the heart. But then I realized, when I went to certain parties where you have MDs, you have CEOs, and you listen to their conversation, because I was really quiet then. It doesn't seem like it, but I was. But it's amazing what happens to you when you listen. And you realize that 1/8 of their conversation was industry specific. All the rest was a combination of food, movies, history, children, everything that anybody in the world could contribute to. And you realize, we're all the same. We all do the same stuff. It's not just about the title, and this is what you have to realize. And then there was this sharing item, and I thought, I must have something to contribute then. So this is where things started to change within me. Okay, so even if you do decide at some point to go back home, believe me, no education, no experience is lost. And
the way you articulated your MBA is so perfect. The value it added, and where all you applied it. I wish I could do that. Even after doing an MBA, I can't do it so perfectly.
And seriously, it has. It made me actually think there has to be something that I can give. And so what I did, then I took the power back into my hands. Now, I had been brought up in society where other people were making decisions. I thought that's the right thing. It's okay. And I thought, I can't be that bad. I just had the conversation. So I started taking small decisions where if they went wrong, the impact wasn't great. And then I started taking a stronger decision. And, after the 4th decision, I looked back to pre-decision time, before all this happened, and I realized, what has changed? Nothing. What had changed? It was only me and the way that I saw myself. I was my own obstacle. Community said they accepted that I would stay at home, and I decided, I think I must be more than this. Maybe the decisions I make, they could be right, they could be of some value. And I started enjoying small victories, and then just developed from there, and I became happier, I became more confident, and because I was more confident, I walked differently. I'm not sure if you've noticed this. When you feel really good, you achieve something, and you feel so good, you're looking people straight in the eye, you're not looking at the floor anymore, you know, you're sashing into rooms, and the strength in your voice changes, doesn't it? So this is it. So you get stronger, and guess what happens? A miracle happens. People perceive you differently. Suddenly they're listening to you, and this had not happened to me in years. Who was listening to me? But you know, things change, and people started listening. I thought, oh, I've got their attention.
It's very interesting the way you put it. We talk about, especially in the corporate world, we talk about empowering others to
Yeah.
take decisions. But from what you are saying, I think it's very evident how you changed your self-perception
Yeah.
and empowered yourself to take, starting from very small, maybe inconsequential decisions to more impactful, stronger decisions. I think this is something that we don't talk about.
Absolutely.
How you
Yeah.
empower yourself. I think this is very interesting.
This is a message, and it's true. And it comes from the heart because it comes from my personal experience. And I cannot say it strongly enough. If you've been at home, or if you think you're not worth it, believe me, think of that advert, that shampoo advert, you know what I'm talking about.
Yes.
Are worth it. And your perspective yourself changes, and then you change people's perspective of you. And that's when you know that you've taken your power back. And so I will not say, am I a bit frustrated about the way that I was brought up? No, absolutely not. Because it made me the person I am today. And you know, there's things that I can communicate to people. You know, nothing is ever wrong. You know, it's just the way it was at the time. So, you know, I never rebelled, but I just did things differently, and I thought about things differently, and then it changed for me. So, and that dictated the rest of my career from then on. So being at home was probably the most enlightening time for me. And it was, yes, probably the strongest time for me, actually. And so, you know, and here I am today, but of course a lot more has happened in between.
So from that enlightening period in your
Yeah.
life, how did you kind of break out of that and then start your work again?
Right, so rather than breaking out, so as I said, I didn't really prepare. Do such things and don't tell my mom. Okay, so, you know, it was natural. Because I started making decisions, I thought, then I realised that I am more than I realised. I'm more than what people thought I was. Were, actually, to be exact. So then what I did, I applied to retail again, but this time with a difference. I applied at a higher level. What is the worst that can happen to you? You're at home, you're not doing anything. What is the worst that can happen to you? Nothing will change, that's the worst scenario. Or you will get what you go for, right? And my dad's a better man. It's a 50-50 probability, okay? So you've got a good chance of achieving what you go for. And that's exactly what happened. So then, of course, and I worked for some names like H&M, VHS, and so forth. And before I knew it, I was running a 23,000 square foot outfit. I had about 50 people directly reporting to me. I was interviewing. I was implementing strategy. Bear with me, the phone also rings. It's a working household. So what I learned at home, and I said this was a big learning curve for me. The questions as an employer changed. So the questions that I started asking people, potential candidates, I wanted to know how they would approach a problem, a crisis scenario. Because I wanted to know their psyche. I wanted to know their rationale. Because it's an attitude that I was looking for. Because anyone can learn industry stuff. You know, it's not that complicated, but it's an attitude that's hard to come by. So this is it. So then I ended up not employing the people that had maybe 10 jobs behind them. I actually ended up employing people who had probably 2 jobs but had the right attitude. What did that result in? You know, low staff turnover, you know, greater productivity. So really it did work for me as a manager. So this is how my experiences at home transformed me at work, and actually probably made me a better person. I was more capable. This is it. I remember my management had, you know, had enough practice at home, as you can imagine. So that's how that happened. But obviously, that lasted for about 2.5 years because retail, tough hours. Tough hours, you know, it's not a 9-to-5 job, not in England. It's a mature economy. So once it's done, then the job is over. So that's where another change came. So that's when I went back home. Okay. And I sat there and I thought this time, what is it I love? What is it I love? I love talking. I love communicating. This is it. Good. She has been listening. This is what I like. So I love communicating. I love music. I love, I love socializing. So if I put that into a machine, what is a job that would pop out? Anna's radio. And I was shocked.
This idea just came to your head like
Yes.
Just one fine day.
Is it? So this is it. What did I like? And then I thought, well, what job would contain all those hobbies of mine? And it just happened to be radio.
So you made this whole
The
list
list
and
had to
I
go back
did.
to the drawing board to find
This is it.
out.
And I shocked myself. I said, radio. And I said, seriously? I thought, well, no, I've carried out the process, so I'm not going to let it go now. I'm going to have to do this. And there was a local, I come from Southwood, it's an Indian community. And so, as you know, I come from, very Indian setup. So I know Hindi very well, I communicate very well, I know Hindi music, believe it or not, passion. And I related to the Indian culture. I know the traditional and I know the modern as well because I was in that juxtaposition. So I applied to my local radio station. And I walked in, and the owner laughed at me. First of all, he was a man, not good. You do not laugh at a woman, right? So first thing. Anyway, so he said to me, he laughed at me, and he looked at my resume, and he said, there are 1,000 people that come through the door with more experience than you, and you have absolutely nothing. And I was angry because he was right. And I was angry because he said that to me. I'm a woman, I'm complicated, right? So I can find any reason to be angry. And I had nothing to lose. As I said, what have I got? Nothing. So I will lose nothing. So I said, you know what? I'm not here for those 1,000 people that you're talking about. I'm here for you, and I'm here right now. And suddenly he stopped. He stopped laughing. He looked at me. And you could feel it. It must have been a few seconds, but I could feel the fact that he was just looking. I thought, oh no, he's going to kick me out. And he said, okay. And that's how radio started. So that is, and I was I'm as surprised. I'm not surprised as you are. Trust me. But I think what made it was the fact that you see yourself differently. And then you're able to exude that confidence. And then people think, oh, maybe she knows what she's talking about. Maybe she doesn't. But we're not going to go there. But you've got your foot in the door and you gave yourself that chance. And that's what I say to absolutely everybody. No, even if you're at home, you could be in a department at work and you could think, this is it. Well, no, you are more than that. Try for something higher. Try for something better. Why not? Who said you can't do it? You are saying you can't do it? So ladies, wherever you are, is my advice to you. So yeah, I did that for a year and a half.
So what were the changes that you experienced? Like you were working in retail setup and earlier you were working in the retail setup. So what were the changes that you...
Not many, surprisingly, because when I'm communicating, I'm managing myself. So on radio you have to manage your show, you have to manage yourself. It's as simple as that. You're bringing your content in. You have to communicate that message. Okay, you have to do stuff at home. I was actually transferring skills. So I was in a social environment in retail, remember that? And I was also in a social environment at home. I had to communicate to so many people to get work done, to get stuff done. So it was nothing different. But on radio, you're supposed to assume that it's a one-to-one conversation. That was probably different. So actually, I was transferring skills. And I was creative anyway. As you know, I worked in retail and I love clothes, I love colour. So putting stuff together, making sure the strategy works and it's successful, that's part of your job. So being creative in radio, it's the same thing, it's no different. So, believe it or not, it may seem different, but it's not. Let me enlighten you.
It just seems like anybody can do anything.
Absolutely, because
Only if you believe in it.
right? My job is completely different. The perception we had about the entire radio industry is completely different from the corporate industry. But now that you mention, we are intrigued.
Well, there you go. So I see the next job on your resume.
So, did you observe any biases coming into play?
Biases in terms of, I think even in England, I mean, because I was in the, that hybrid sector, second generation. So I know when I did my radio show, and because they used to hear me, right? So they used to think, oh, she doesn't know much about our culture. So I had to spend a lot of time communicating that actually I do. I threw in Hindi in there. I threw in a few, phrases. I know my songs very well. And when they heard that, they just wanted to call in because they appreciated the fact that there was this young person who's willing to absorb and engage with tradition and with with the Indian community. It doesn't matter what I sounded like. So they loved that. They appreciated that actually, which was really good. So I enjoyed it. I loved it, and I hated the day that I had to leave. That was probably one of my most difficult moments. Actually, I felt I found my calling, but obviously there was more for me.
So tell us more about